Hey, welcome to the Fandom Post Radio podcast. I am your engineer, Kate, and joining me this week is Kestrel.
I only had to kill off Bran and DJ to get first billing.
Hey, and Cain is here.
It was a long road, but was it worth it? Was this power worth it?
Absolutely.
Would do it again.
Yes.
Technical difficulties aside, we are here this week to talk about anime. And this episode will mostly be a subdued wrap-up of the summer season, because it was not lighting the world on fire, and a bunch of news that has happened that we are going to cover. So, news.
So we've got some interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about. Basically, the month of September we got here. So, yeah, first thing here. So Tokyo Laboratory, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it houses a lot of the film masters of a lot of anime and other Japanese film going back many decades. And it is going to be shut down. And so all the film originals are going to be returned to their proper clients, but anything that is unclaimed is going to be disposed of. So there could be things that are in licensing hell that doesn't have any clear rights holder right now, that will just be destroyed and lost to time forever. There is a Japanese politician who's trying to work with them to preserve these and find a home for them. But yeah, it's a very worrying thought that it could just all be gone forever, and when someone does claim it, there's no way to license it and get the masters.
That weird that they're all just kind of hanging out in that place.
Yeah.
Over here, if there was a library like that, a lot of places, a lot of colleges and stuff end up taking archives like that for, posterity, and end up usually at some kind of college or university somewhere as we have the so-and-so library of whatever. But
yeah, there's a couple interesting YouTube videos and stuff about how certain movies, I think a couple even in the Criterion Collection, the only existing film print is just in some random small town college's library because they just happen to get it.
Interesting.
We definitely do not have a centralized location for any of that stuff. It looks like, and I read over the article earlier today, and I saw that they're getting shut down, but the operations aren't necessarily, because it looks like it's getting parted out. So it says, the Tokyo Laboratory stated at the time it would shut down, but the digital imaging and video editing business would transfer to Toho Studio, and the archiving would transfer to a new archiving company that Toho will establish within the studio. Now, the scale of that is up for grabs, obviously, especially with how everything's digitized and stuff now. So I know they said that was part of why this business move was made, is so many stuff is just being I guess created and then stored digitally that, film and other things are just kind of, not nearly as prevalent as they were before. I feel particularly worrisome for the independent films and other things that will be lost to time that potentially nobody will ever really, for lack of better terms, care enough to go look for.
Yeah.
But you don't know what we're losing. That's why, even though I don't watch a lot of the films they make, creative companies and stuff like Vinegar Syndrome and things like that are incredibly valuable to film, because they'll just make whatever and transfer it from the film, into a nice scan and do all of this archiving stuff, even if the film is like a piece of shit 80s like porno horror flick or whatever, they'll do it. So hopefully something like that can happen here, because I can only imagine the films that would be lost to time that nobody would ever go to look for since they weren't necessarily created by name brand folks.
And Discotek is kind of that for anime licensing, but again, their scope is relatively limited, and the things that are going to be destroyed are the stuff that they wouldn't be able to get their hands on anyway because it doesn't have a rights holder.
Yeah, that's got to be a nightmare. So hopefully they can get that sorted out.
Yep. We'll see. All right. Speaking of Discotek classics, Space Adventure Cobra, the creator of the original manga series, Buichi Terasawa, has passed away at age 68. He had a heart attack, but he'd also had some surgeries and brain tumors before, so he was already in very rough shape. But yeah, definitely a classic. He was like a character out of Space Adventure Cobra. If you saw any interviews with him, he was quite a character. So yeah, sad to see that happen.
Yeah, we're losing a lot of the old guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty out there dude.
Yeah.
That is for sure. Not one of those types like Junji Ito or whatever.
Yeah.
I should get around to reading the manga eventually since I watched the movie and I've been aware of the property for such a long time. And Terasawa, just by, being in circles of people who like old stuff, that name inevitably comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't read any of the manga. I wasn't a big fan of the movie, although it does look beautiful with HDR. The TV series, though, I'm a big fan of, so definitely recommend that to anyone. All right. From the old to the new, we are finally getting Attack on Titan, the final season, the final chapter, the final part. In November 4th. It's happening. It's going to be the end, probably. Most likely. We'll see.
Probably. You always got to leave the door open.
Yeah.
What's it going to be, like a feature-length film type deal?
Oh, no, it's the same as the part 1 earlier this year, so it's just going to be like a 1-hour TV special, presumably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I'm just waiting until the dust settles, and then I'm gonna just fucking binge the whole thing. It's too late for me to try to just catch up now, so I might as well just wait, especially because obviously everyone wants to know how it's gonna end, if they'll follow the manga or not.
I think I saw some posts from, like, I don't know, people who worked on it or something, that it was going to mostly follow the manga, which, might not be good, because a lot of people hated the ending of the manga, and I'm curious to see what was so bad about it.
It was all a dream.
Yeah.
I can confidently say that's not the ending of the thing.
Are you sure?
Well, you can never be perfectly sure about that. I mean, somebody later could always be like, "Oh, that's what happened."
But yeah,
no, I do also know how the manga ends, so.
Yeah, the two people who are not invested in the property are the ones who know how the manga ends.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I was reviewing it for a hot minute.
Well, do you know how it ends because you finished reading it?
No.
Yeah, I mean...
Man, got her. Couldn't let her have it.
But yeah, I have successfully avoided any spoilers on that series since it ended years ago. So just gotta last another month and a few days, and then I will see what all the hubbub was about.
Yeah, I think this is the only thing I've ever like intentionally spoiled myself for. Like I looked for it because I didn't know if I
Mm.
was ever gonna watch it or read it, but I wanted to know what the hubbub was all about. But most of the time, I tried to
I
not
was
do that. But this was
yeah,
just something I was like, people are just freaking out. So
Yeah.
I was partially following, like, the developments in the manga, and then I was like then finally I'm like, "Oh, is it over? Okay, let's see how this went down," and everyone's like, "Meh." I'm like, "Ah, okay."
Yeah, I was expecting to get spoiled by at Anime NYC because the creator was there and he had a panel and he was talking about the ending and like, not being sure that he did the right thing. But he never actually mentioned what happened, which I was grateful for. But given that, it seemed likely that he would work with the anime staff to maybe tweak it a little bit. He's got a couple of years of retrospect to figure out what he was trying to say, maybe. But I don't know. Maybe it sounds like that might not be the case. So we'll see. All right, back to the old made new again. We are getting a new Fist of the North Star anime. We don't know anything about it at this point, I don't believe, but it will be something new for, I believe, the 40th anniversary of the manga.
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, it is. I am certainly intrigued after reading over the story, like the new story and everything. I've seen the original TV series. I never read the manga or anything, so I'm interested what exactly they're going to do. Because like they could fully embrace sort of the retroness of it, almost like a JoJo style thing, and just jump right in, even though it's got some very like trapped in the time it was made stuff going on. But I'm always up for more like big buff dudes hitting the shit out of each other. So I'm wondering if it's gonna be like new or a remake, so to speak.
New, what do you mean by that?
As in like they're not just gonna remake the original television series with nicer, production value and stuff. Like, is this going to be a new original story of
I mean,
Kenshiro?
I guess it's possible. They have been coming out with, um, newish OVAs and movies here and there, in like kind of the modern era. So I assume based on this kind of announcement and the celebratory nature of it, that it'll just be a fresh reboot adaptation of the manga. I don't know how closely the anime followed the manga, so this might be like you know, getting back to the source material and really being more faithful to it. I don't know that anyone really cares about that or cares what happens in Fist of the North Star. But
That's
yeah,
not what
that's
people aren't there for that. People are,
right.
yeah, looking for buff dudes hitting each other.
So that
Looking
was
for
kind of
buff
my
dudes and for Ken just to say you're already dead and
yeah,
then scream at the top of his lungs.
right. So yeah, I assume it'll be something like that, but again, nothing's been announced, so we don't know.
I was reading through the article in preparation and everything, and it further cemented my ongoing and perpetual confusion with how anime seasons work. Because unless it's wrong, it says the Fist of North Star television anime ran for 2 seasons and had 152 episodes.
I mean, One Piece
Okay.
is on season 1, so yeah.
What does that mean?
It means there was no break. There was
Yeah.
one break at some point.
Yeah, that's all it means. If it just continues on every single week forever, then it's only one season.
I,
And you
they,
just go by arcs, I guess.
Yeah, generally that's how people break it up.
shit, you know what always used to confuse me is like how in England every television season is called a series, and I'm like,
Series, yep.
this
Yeah.
fucks me up. I'm like, that's not how that works. This is like the cookie thing all over again. England, what are you doing?
Yeah. We watch a lot of British television in the house, and I always think that's funny where it's like series 1, series 2, series 3, but what they mean is seasons, at least as far as we know them.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for this. Did we have like a Haku no Ken like chibi series for a little bit or
Yeah,
something?
that was
Was
fairly recent,
was
yeah.
that a thing? Did that
Yeah.
happen?
I think
Yeah.
so.
That's scary.
I remember seeing passing it on Crunchyroll a few times and being like, "There's no way this can have anything to do with normal Fist of the North Star because it's bright and colorful and looks like sort of kid friendly."
God, that
But I'm
was
not sure.
a decade ago already. That started
Was
the
it?
same season as Attack on Titan. Yeah,
Jesus.
They're
the
just
real star.
following in the tradition of, all the 80s properties that were definitely not for kids, but they made them into kids properties anyway.
Like Rambo.
Yeah, Rambo and Ghostbusters and RoboCop.
RoboCop is my favorite one of those.
The most horrifically violent thing. Shit towards kids.
All right. Well, I just mentioned One Piece recently, and if anyone listened to our last episode, it was 3 straight hours of nothing but live action One Piece. And guess what? We're getting more. 2 weeks after the release, it was officially announced by Oda that we are getting another season of Netflix's live action One Piece series, and we will be getting Tony Tony Chopper.
Ugh. I hope they don't go with what they want to do with that.
What did they say they want to do?
Actor and prosthetics. Like the one thing they shouldn't do for that.
Yeah, that would be weird.
I still think they should just go Muppet. Muppet and then CG for the more complicated forms is what they should do.
Literal Muppet might be not quite
Cool
there,
as hell.
but some sort of puppet, I think. would work.
Chopper's really fucking cute. And what was it? The more recent trailers for the upcoming Doctor Who special or whatever, and they have that crazy fucking alien thing that looks like a giant stuffed animal, but it's terrifying because it's just gigantic and it's all eyes, and I think that's practical. And that just looks like a giant fucking stuffed animal, which basically, Chopper is just a stuffed animal. So
yeah, is Chopper the moose thing?
The moose thing.
Deer?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got antlers, right?
I think I just felt my soul die. I'm
Hey, man, I don't watch any of this.
I just heard Brita Palitz's Chopper screaming, "I'm a reindeer!"
Sure, yeah. He is certainly not.
I was trying to go with the whole you said Chopper's cute, and anytime I've ever seen a drawing or picture, Chopper just looks grotesque.
He was kind of. It's always what?
It's always bug eyes and the One Piece style, never just Chopper just standing there. It's always in a state of distress.
Oh, shock Chopper.
He did start off with kind of more of a, I don't know, more reindeerish design, and then he just gradually moved into just becoming a Pokemon.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
He's literally voiced by Pikachu in Japanese too, so.
That helps.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm happy that it's successful. I'm not gonna watch it, I don't think, but it's always nice just to see something go right in this realm.
Yeah.
Of live action adaptations. I'm not surprised it got a second season, not due to its popularity, but Netflix typically gives 2 seasons to stuff that doesn't totally fucking bomb.
Yeah, let's compare this here. We have Cowboy Bebop, which is, the same production companies, same everything. One, I don't know, less than a week maybe after it dropped, after years of hyping it up and promoting it and stuff, they announce that they will definitely never be making more, which you don't have to announce. You can just not make more. One Piece, same kind of scenario, but 2 weeks after it drops, they announce that it will absolutely be getting more in the midst of multiple strikes that would prevent them from being able to do any work on it. And this was
I think you're missing the fact there that Cowboy Bebop got lambasted the second it came out. So yeah, like I said, it bombed. So yeah, they're not gonna release more of it.
Cowboy Bebop was in the hole while they were shooting because of the problems with the actors getting injured. They ended up that production cost them more money than they were anticipating, and when it was clear from the get-go that the numbers weren't gonna pan out, they just said nah. not happening.
But the numbers for this must have been insane, because for them to greenlight more of it that involve even more expensive things, uh, 2 weeks after it's out, when it cost them $144 million for the first season, plus all of the millions that they spent on promotion. Yeah, that must have been ridiculously successful for them to be that confident to greenlight more that quickly.
Unfortunately, we'll never know, since nobody knows how Netflix measures these things.
Right.
Their own numbers, but like what those mean, in reality is hard to judge. But as they would say in the industry, they meet or exceeded expectations. So that's why they're greenlighting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it was good.
Yeah.
And then it was good.
And then it was good.
And on the other side of this, we had Jamie Lee Curtis going, "Fucking yeah, let's do this when the strike's over." And then the showrunner going, "Fuck yeah, let's do this." So,
yep, she's been talking about wanting to play Kureha for many years. So now that it's gonna get to the part where Kureha's gonna be in it, and it's been this successful, they really have no reason not to cast her. I'm sure she would work for a lot less for the show anyway, but also they're putting so much money into it that, the one big actor, because they haven't really had any big actors. They had Ian McShane read a few lines in episode 1.
Yeah.
But beyond that, yeah, they're not really putting the money down for acting talent. So I think that
they're going to do one stunt casting. Yeah, one stunt casting, this will be it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's not even stunt casting. Like, she's begging to play the role, and she's perfect for it. So
yeah,
should be
well,
great.
it's still considered like stunt casting, but yeah, it's the equivalent of like really famous people like hiding themselves in getting like being an alien in like Star Wars,
Yeah.
Like, I just want to be. Or what was it? Oh, was it Shaun of the Dead? Some of those movies had like other famous actors that were like there, but like in the background. Like, I can't remember who it was. There was like a hazmat scene where there were people in hazmat suits and you couldn't actually see who they were, and one of them was like some super famous actor, and I can't remember who. But like they were just there just to be a part of this thing because they were friends with the people doing it,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, normally I think of stunt casting as like, this is not necessarily the right actor for the role, but we wanted to put their name on the poster so we could sell tickets. So I think this is a very different scenario. Anyway, should be fun. Also, I guess on that note, I'll mention the One Piece podcast has, of course, been talking about the live-action series as well, and they've got some good interviews. Of course, they have an episode with Greg talking about his role on it and a lot of that kind of behind-the-scenes stuff from Shueisha and from just all around production that he was kind of privy to. So that's super interesting. And also, they interviewed the composers, which I think the one thing I said that I was like not that excited about was the music. I thought it was fine. But after hearing everything that they kind of put into it, I think if I watched it again and really paid attention, I could appreciate all the kind of like motifs and leitmotifs that they had woven through it, and kind of just the soundscape of the series and how it relates to each character and all that. So yeah, I think they put a lot into that. And then of course the showrunner himself, or one of the two showrunners, Steve Maeda, they also had on their last episode. And yeah, he went into great detail about everything involved in the process. So lots of great insight if you want that from the reindeer's mouth.
Yeah, we're so used to the anime music. I think that kind of tinges our expectations of what the soundtrack should be. But I saw a lot of people online who were just casual fans or weren't familiar with it or whatever, who really liked the soundtrack. So there's that. And it was the same people that did like The Witcher. Yeah. So they've got a little following, and people were into it. So yeah, we were not the audience to be that was targeting, but it hit the people that it needed to, I think.
Like I said in our episode, and the composers said this too in their interview, I don't need it to have the anime music because it's an adaptation of the manga that does not have music.
Yeah.
So does not need to, fit anything that existed before. I just felt like, only one track really stood out to me, and I thought that they used it just kind of to death. But again, listening to them talk about how they kind of, created themes for every character and, had different instruments and different ways of recording for each kind of scenario and how it was evolving and like playing against each other. I think if I really watched it again and paid close attention to all that, I would appreciate it a lot more. So, yeah. Good for them. And they were like huge One Piece fans. Like as soon as they heard that One Piece was going to be adapted, they like prepared this big presentation about what live action One Piece would sound like and had like all the characters like what kind of instruments and what kind of sounds would fit them and all this stuff like way before they were even in the running to be hired, and just presented it to them. They're like, okay, yeah, you guys got the job.
Yeah, I like it when people are like, that's like the story of this whole production is that the people who are making it actually give a shit.
Right. Yeah.
So
the people making it love the property, and Shueisha and Oda are too involved for any executives to kind of force it any other way anyway. So
yeah, they own it too much for that to happen. And that's really what it comes down to is like Japanese creators usually have the most say unless like they and usually where that falls apart is when they enter the Hollywood system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it on home turf they usually got final say.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Japanese companies, Studio Ghibli has been acquired by Nippon TV.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Is Nippon
Sorta,
TV
kinda.
Is Nippon TV their PBS equivalent? I can't remember.
No, that's
think
NHK.
Oh, okay. NHK would have made more sense, but okay.
I saw people comparing it to more like ABC, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
One of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense. Nippon TV, American Broadcasting Company. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about this like before I was reading over the article, and I think I read the one that had Suzuki talking more about what their path was moving forward after this and how they're going to stay more focused on film but want to hire people to direct like TV things because I guess that's what they believe is a good roadmap for getting young people experience is directing like TV episodes and things rather than films.
Which makes
But
sense.
I guess
yeah,
it does make sense because you get more of a taste of directing rather than having to do an entire feature length film and such at once. So that part definitely makes sense. It felt like the two major takeaways or theories people were positing, I suppose, in my reading after this was one, they hope it doesn't turn into a Mappa situation, and then two, is this mainly because as Miyazaki and Suzuki and such get older, they're not finding anyone to replace themselves partially of their own doing.
It's all of their own doing.
Yeah,
How many?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, let's see. How many now famous directors worked at Studio Ghibli at some point, and then were basically shown the door because they couldn't like accept that these young kids were,
Yeah, basically all of the Ghibli and Miyazaki documentaries are just like new up and coming artists trying to make it at Ghibli and Miyazaki just destroying them. So, yeah, it's not a very conducive environment to fostering new talent.
No, that is absolutely for sure. Because you're not gonna have a good working environment and try to find that future if you're constantly pushing people out the door or pushing them so hard that they die. So, there are several things involved. Also, I don't know. I was thinking about it as well. I was like, I don't know how much you could expect to find what is essentially like, we were just looking for the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
Like in
I
that
mean,
way, like that kind of talent's not just gonna pop up. Like the ability to make movies that span cultures and generations and things like that, and get that type of success. Like that's not something you could just find. Um, it also just sets your expectations way too high. Like man, also poor Goro getting dunked on again.
always.
Goro will
Always.
always be the unloved son.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yeah, because they were like, we asked Goro several times if he wanted to, and he said no, and his dad also said no. And I was like, man, poor Goro, just can't win, just cannot win. So yeah, I don't really know how much to think about the whole Mappa thing, aka they don't want to turn Ghibli into like what Disney has done with Star Wars, for better or for worse, and just have them churn out stuff to cash in on the name brand. That doesn't feel like that's going to be the case, especially because Nippon TV has worked with Ghibli a lot in the past, like broadcasting their stuff and things of that nature. So there's a working relationship there, but uh, who's to say anything can happen at that point? Um, so it'll be really intriguing to see how it goes so far. I personally, the first time I read it, I was like, oh, this seems like just a move so that they can make sure that somebody owns the rights in like the historical pieces, because who knows how many more movies they'll keep making once, Miyazaki and stuff is gone. Um, so it's someone who's just there to basically take care of the vault, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's surprising only because, they're so protective of, their ethos and not selling out, not doing anything that corporate media would want them to do. Like they wouldn't let Toho promote The Boy and the Heron at all, and the amount of money being put into that they're not allowed to put any promotion out, just because Suzuki and Miyazaki are like, nah, trailers are kind of bullshit. I don't want people to see this before the movie comes out. That's like being owned by a major company. It seems like it would be more difficult to be able to make something like that fly. So, I mean, I guess it's possible that Suzuki is just kind of like done with running everything and knows that they need real funding. And if they want to continue, then they can't just rely on Miyazaki's whims as he's in his 80s and takes 10 years to complete films. So, yeah, it was surprising to see and kind of like, I don't know, disheartening because it feels like, nobody can be an independent company anymore, which we'll get to in a bit. And Ghibli of all companies, it seems like they had their ethos down. They had absolute control and would never let anyone compromise their vision. So hopefully that doesn't change, but yeah, these guys are very old, so it can't last forever anyway.
Well, and then you have to also counterbalance ethos and control with a business still needs to make money, which they have
Yeah,
struggled with on several occasions.
right. And
So,
it has seemed like so far they just didn't care. And at this point, like they could all just retire and be done with it. And they've already shut down the studio before when Miyazaki retired the last time
Yeah, I
because
remember that.
Suzuki was literally like, the studio exists to make Miyazaki's films. So if he's not working, we're not going to be a studio. Um, so like he doesn't care that much about keeping the studio running necessarily. At least he didn't 10 years ago. Um, but yeah, I don't know the entirety of the motivations, but still, still is a strange thing to see happen. And yeah, the whole next Miyazaki thing, like that is a phrase that has been thrown out for decades and decades. The next Miyazaki. Any new director who seems remotely promising, oh, are they going to be the next Miyazaki? Like, no, we don't need a next Miyazaki. He is known because he's so unique, and if anyone tried to recreate that, then it'd be missing the point of what makes them special. So don't try fucking aping someone else. There will be other great directors. It could be at this studio, it could be at another one. It doesn't have to be anything like Miyazaki, and shouldn't be.
What if we just clone the Miyazaki?
Yeah, well, that's what Miyazaki
Implying
wants.
that hasn't happened.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess, there was a news story that Miyazaki is not retiring, but that's not news.
Yeah. Not one bit.
Everybody in the world was like, yeah. We know how you operate.
So in that vein, it does make me wonder what they were looking for in someone to head the studio, because Suzuki said he had spent many years searching and he just couldn't find anyone. So between their, pretty toxic work environment and incredible expectations, I wonder if the next Miyazaki was who they were looking for, or if it's some other esoteric requirement sheet where they would just know, or what have you, because those are some hefty shoes to fill. So, or would be if that's what you were trying to pursue.
Yeah. I mean, Takahata's gone. A lot of the other directors who worked there are either no longer with us, or left long ago, or when Ghibli decided to stop making films because Miyazaki decided to stop making films temporarily, they left and formed what was their
Ponok?
company called? Yeah, Ponok.
Yeah, Ponok, they made Mary and the Witch's Flower.
Yeah, and they've got another one coming out soonish, I think. That was announced anyway. So yeah, Ghibli at this point, it's just kind of Miyazaki. So without him, does it even have an identity? Like, Ponok is clearly aping the Ghibli style, but I feel like at this point, just let Miyazaki make films until he dies, and then rebrand as something else. Doesn't have to be Ghibli anymore, because it's already not like a franchise house. Like, they don't do franchises, they do standalone films. They don't even do sequels. So there's no reason to really continue Studio Ghibli if everything behind its identity is gone.
Truly the anti-Disney, despite having, theme park things.
Right. But, I mean, have you, read the articles about that theme park? Which, by the way, Brandon is at right now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. That's where he is.
But yeah, anyway.
I have no idea what this thing looks like.
So it was described, I think it was like a New York Times article, but it was described as like the anti-theme park. Like, it doesn't have like rides or any of the shit that you expect from a theme park. It's just kind of like they used it as an excuse to force people to like take a walk in the woods. It's just like a regular park, and it's just hilarious.
Oh, what theme parks used to be back? Well, what like like the old-fashioned trolley parks that the United States used to have back in the day.
Yeah, so it's really hilarious and fascinating to read about what it is actually like, and maybe we'll get a report from our own co-host next time he's on. But yeah, it's definitely the anti-Disneyland, as Ghibli is the anti-Disney.
It's reminds me that that just reminded me that Six Flags New England still has a picnic area inside the park, off by the river. I'm like, why do you still have, I was looking at a map of the park recently, I'm like, why do we still have this? And it's like a holdover from what it used to be, a fucking trolley park, and people would go there to escape the city and the fumes in the city and the horrible living conditions in the city. They would take the train as far as the train would get outside the city and then hang out in the woods.
By the way, Ghibli Park was kind of spearheaded by Goro. They decided he was allowed to do that. And apparently he's much better at doing that.
Well, good. I'm glad he's found his calling in the family business.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Good for you. Good for you.
Okay. Next big piece of news of corporate sellouts.
Here we go.
killing all we hold dear. Yeah, so last year we well, I listed off a long list of companies that used to exist in this industry and have now all just become Crunchyroll. Obviously, most prominently among them, Funimation. But another has joined that list, as we knew it would, since it was announced to be purchased by Crunchyroll last year. And after they kind of forced out the guy who ran it for the past 35 plus years. That's Right Stuf. And as we all knew would happen, Crunchyroll has officially announced that they will be ending Right Stuf and just moving everything to the Crunchyroll store.
R.I.P. sales.
Yeah, they've already immediately after that announcement, they ended all of the regular sales. No more weekly specials, no more daily deals, no more weekend sales. They've got a coupon that you can use on stuff right now, but that's it.
Yeah, I call it the so long and thanks for all the fish coupon.
Yeah.
It's literally just called thank you.
Yeah. And it works on everything, which has not been the case for any deal on Right Stuf for many, many years. So use it while you can.
Yeah, I might have to place one more order.
Wasn't Crunchyroll stuff almost always generally more expensive anyway?
Yes, and somebody actually sent them a question going, "Are you going to honor the Right Stuf pricing model?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "I don't believe you."
I think they maybe already did. I think as of yesterday, they had moved their prices to be Right Stuf prices.
Oh God, you can only hope.
Yeah, but yeah, the weekly publisher sales. That's how I've been deciding what to buy and when for 15 years.
Yeah, me too. That's until my backlog became unattainable. But but yeah, that's what you used to do. You'd wait for the big ass Viz sale. You'd wait for the big ass Yen Press sale. It'd be like, I'm gonna stock up.
Like with the anime, I can just pre-order stuff. That's what I've been doing with Funimation / Crunchyroll for all the years since they stopped being in the weekly sale rotation.
Yeah.
But for manga, there's just so much on my list that what I do is when the sale comes around, I buy $50 worth of their stuff so I can get free shipping, and that'll tide me over until the next time they come around. So I have no idea how I'm going to decide to buy manga if they don't bring these sales back.
Yeah, it's going to be... I'm just going to end up buying less is what's going to end up happening.
Now I either have to buy nothing or everything.
If you buy everything, that's how they win.
I know.
You'll be buying your stuff from Barnes & Noble because they might end up having better deals.
I was going to say the same thing.
Which is astounding, because there was a time when they were the last people who gave a shit. And then, after the demise of Borders, and they suddenly realized they needed to actually fucking sell books to survive, and they realized all these manga kids have nowhere to go. Suddenly, their manga sections got way bigger, and then they started selling toys, and then they started selling model kits, and it was really weird when I walked into a Barnes & Noble and saw Gundam kits in there.
Yep.
And I'm like, what is this world? What has happened?
Yeah, the manga section of my Barnes & Noble has just exploded in the past couple years. It used to be, I'm assuming most Barnes & Nobles look the same in that they have those approximately 5.5 foot tall shelves strewn throughout the store. Well, the manga section of mine used to be about 3 of those front and back. Yep. So a decent collection if you weren't really, really into manga. And now it is an entire corner of the store, and the shelves go from floor in a closer to 9 feet tall. I can't reach the top shelf, completely stretched out.
Yeah, and they have it used to be a section behind the science fiction fantasy section. It was one stretch of a stretch and a half of books, a row from end to end of books, and then a quarter of that would have been graphic novels, American graphic novels, and now it's
And I mean that's just that's how big anime and manga have gotten in general, because I feel so slighted. When I was 15 and we'd take the big trip to the big city in Vermont and go to the one mall and the one Barnes and Noble, I would, find the little back corner of FYE that would have a few shelves of anime DVDs, and I'd find the little back corner of Hot Topic that would have a few anime shirts. I'd find the little back corner of Barnes & Noble that would have a few shelves of manga, and I'd sit there and read a bunch of manga for a while and leave with a few. Now, any fucking mall in America is like 50% weeb shit everywhere. It's insane. I can't believe
if you can find them all, though, because, man, those don't really exist around here anymore either.
Man, Kate, you and I are on the same wavelength because I was once again going to say the exact same thing.
What's a mall?
Yeah.
Well,
if you can find one, I also love the big city in Vermont. And the first thing I thought of was a town of 5,000.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, I guess what was that post Borders world or pre Borders extinction world, Kestrel? Were there no borders in Vermont?
I don't know if we had Actually, I think I remember my friend who grew up in Burlington mentioning going to Borders when he was in school. So I think it must have been post Borders then.
I was gonna say.
I don't remember ever seeing one.
Because when Borders used to be such a champion for manga back in the day. They were the ones, like, that's where Hassler came from. He used to be the buyer for Borders, and he ended up going off and starting Yen. But the I remember about being on my internship and taking the train into Boston, and I would stop at the mall every, I'd be like, I've got my hour-long commute into the city, I need a book. And I would go in there and buy a volume or a couple of volumes of manga to read that week on the train. And it was because the Borders was right next to the train station at the mall. And I would just be like, boop, bop in there, and then bop over to the train station, and get my train into Boston, and read a volume of manga, on the way in and a volume out. And that's when my collection started growing. I distinctly remember buying fucking Get Backers or something and reading that on the train.
Yeah. I may have never experienced the glory days of malls because Vermont only ever had 2 or 3 dinky shitty little malls. Because when I go to malls now that I visit major cities and now live in a major city, and there are huge malls everywhere, it feels like the golden age of malls, but perhaps it is nothing compared to what it used to be. So
it's
don't have a frame of reference.
It's kind of weird and backwards, but malls right now are only surviving in urban areas.
That makes sense.
So outside suburban and semi whatever the fuck, I don't know, whatever you call the place where I live, areas, malls are basically dead. But the ones that are closer to the city are still doing fine. It makes no fucking sense. All the things that were malls around here have been replaced with outdoor shopping centers again. It reversed. It went from outdoor shopping centers to malls, and then all the outdoor shopping centers died, and then it went back to outdoor shopping centers here. So, because the mall was fucking expensive, no one could rent the space. Too much money.
So,
yeah, I don't know.
Think about it this way, Kestrel. You could start going back into Barnes and Noble, and then going all back in my day on the kids who were buying manga in there.
I know, man.
Day, the weirdest.
You could be the resident old man.
I know. That's how I feel.
I was one time standing in a Borders looking at Suikoden manga, and some random ass girl came up out of nowhere and saw what I was looking at, and she's all like, I love so and so, and I'm all like, yeah, this is a really good series, and she's all like, I love so and so, can I give you a hug? And she gave me a hug out of nowhere. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, okay, girl, rando. Weirdest thing ever happened to me in a store. I was like, yeah, okay.
But yeah, that's how I feel, being the old man who missed out on the glory days because anime wasn't cool when he was a kid. I'm like, man, you kids have it so fucking good these days, everywhere.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, maybe Barnes and Noble will become the savior. Maybe the porn spin-off of Right Stuf will become the savior because they've been slowly adding non-porn stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, I've not heard great things about their shipping and packaging.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the big thing. Like,
Uh,
if we don't get the right stuff packaging anymore, we're doomed. Like, no
yeah,
one will protect your stuff like right stuff.
yeah, exactly. Those boxes were perfect.
Yes.
Nothing. I never had anything come from them damaged ever, ever.
I
And not to
had
mention the customer service there. Oh my god, like they had the best customer service.
when's the last time you've experienced all of this?
Oh, has it gone downhill?
In my experience, um, I mean, maybe my problem was trying to use like their, automated online case system. Uh, Once I actually fucking called a human being, it was great.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well, I called a human being.
oh well, I'm a millennial. I don't call people.
Well, the couple of times I had put in a thing was like, oh, my credit card number expired. Can you fix this? And they were like, yeah, no problem. That was automated. But like one time one of my shit got lost in the fucking mail, and I think did they have one of those online chat things or something? No, I think I actually talked to a real human being. I called some woman there, and had a discussion with her about it, and it was really good. But that was also I don't know how many years ago at this point, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like when I moved here, uh, I had 1,000 outstanding orders, as I always do. Uh, and so, I put in a case. I'm like, hey, you don't let us change our own shipping addresses. So I have all of these outstanding orders. Can you just change the shipping address to this new one that I'm moving to? Um, and they're like, okay, we updated all of these open orders, but for all of the partially fulfilled ones, it's impossible. And I'm like, I doubt that, but okay. And then there were like all kinds of problems with USPS not forwarding media mail for some reason, which Right Stuf uses for everything. Uh, and so shit didn't get forwarded to me. So I had like a $150 Attack on Titan records uh, getting delivered to some rando strangers who now lived in my old house.
uh
And I just could not get it resolved at all, and I kept submitting the case over and over again, and they kept just rejecting it because they were like, "Oh, this case is already resolved." I'm like, no, it's fucking not. Read what I said. And then finally, I called a human being, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's easy. I'll just update him now." I'm like, yeah, of course it is. Thank you.
that sounds like something was getting routed in their automated system poorly.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
presumably everything will go downhill, and a lot of people will lose their jobs. And we don't really know any of the specifics. Like, are they keeping the Grimes warehouse? Are they moving everything to wherever the fuck they're shipping stuff out of currently for the Crunchyroll store? Are they keeping any of the old staff? Are they all new staff? No idea.
Just assume the enshittification will occur
Yes.
because
Like,
that is what happens.
right. Like with Funimation, that wasn't even Crunchyroll buying Funimation. That was Funimation buying Crunchyroll and then adopting their name and branding. And yet, even though that seems like it should have no real effect, what we got was an immediate reduction in home video releases to the point that they now basically hold the rights for everything, let everything go out of print immediately, and release almost nothing other than like the huge hits. So if the Crunchyroll branding and the idea of Crunchyroll as a streaming first business could kind of destroy by far the biggest home video market in the industry, them completely taking over the biggest physical media distributor is very worrisome. I don't think that we're safe to assume that everything will just be business as usual under new Crunchyroll management.
No. Yeah, I don't know. It depends on. Oh, I'm just sick of these places buying profitable businesses only to tank them
Yeah.
for no, whatever. It was like I said, when it was like it dawned on me, the whole Judge Doom. I bought the red car so I could dismantle it. It's like, oh man, is that right? Is that all the reason just to get rid of the competition? Is that it? Just shut it down? Buy it to shut it down?
make this industry oranger. Everything needs to be Crunchyroll. There can be no other businesses. Everything must be Crunchyroll.
Bleh. Bleh.
Which is all of media.
Discotheque and G Kids will save us.
Yeah. Yeah, the few independent holdouts. Literally those two.
Mm-hmm. But they're good though.
Yeah,
they do
they're
good
great.
work. At least they exist. At least we have them.
Yes.
FTC, save us.
But for new things, yeah, no. It's all Sony. All day.
Yeah.
Hooray.
On that depressing note, this is just the cheeriest news section.
I know, right? Yeah. The death of
everything
film,
you know and love.
The death of creators, the death of beloved companies. Yeah. The death of Ghibli's independence. I don't know. Yeah, so the next piece of news, my last piece of news before we get into Cain's not anime. We have the manga of Hajime no Ippo licensed. That's the good news. The monkey's paw bad news behind it is that it is only available on the god-awful fucking K-manga app.
That needs to die.
Yeah.
The death of 1,000 burning suns.
You're just mad you don't have enough points to read it, Kestrel.
Haven't been grinding enough.
Yeah, you haven't been grinding enough advertising videos.
Yeah.
Worst.
Haven't been playing their Candy Crush and, yeah, watching their ad TikToks, whatever. I don't know.
Oh, God. Can we just reset the internet? Can we just go back to Internet 101?
I wanted to remember how bad the app was, so I just scrolled through the Google reviews and I was like, yes. That's right. All of these shenanigans that are poorly implemented on top of being terrible.
See, the scary part for this is I'm sitting here going, who's going to buy into this? And I'm like, dumbass teenagers who don't know any better because this is all they have ever known from playing phone games all their lives.
Exactly.
I'm like, fuck.
That's why they did it.
The kids are not always all right.
No.
The kids can be very wrong.
Yeah. So hopefully it will at least get a normal digital release, if not ideally a print release, but not hold my breath for that, nor do I have any space. So, yeah.
Banana Shit is notorious for not releasing their shit in print. Some of their better titles. Because, it didn't perform well digitally.
Yeah, right. Like Space Brothers still never got in print. Very upset about that. Yeah, probably not.
I never got Altair in print because the anime was shit. And the manga, because the anime was shit, the digital manga sales did not take off. So I never got beautiful print editions of what is actually a very gorgeous manga. And that fucking pissed me off. Fuck these people, man. Fuck these people making bad decisions. USA has always made bad decisions.
We're just too old, Kate.
No, they were like bad from the get-go.
The kids don't want paper? Paper is so 20th century.
Look, man. I've seen my niece. I've seen Carmen. They're cool. Not all the kids are fucked up. Kids still like physical objects.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about some quote anime. Game?
Quote anime.
Yeah, I know it's like not anime, but I wanted to put it on the news because A, it's exciting, and B, Netflix and the news stories around it call it anime, which I think is hysterical. Yeah, I think it's.
Who's animating it? Let's put it. We'll back this up. Texas is animating it. That's not anime.
Yeah, Powerhouse. It's the same people who did Castlevania.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess the new thing that's happening now is we're gonna really start getting into video games as anime now, because the two in particular that were, one was announced before and got some extra information in a trailer, and one was just announced. But there is a Tomb Raider and a new Devil May Cry anime coming out like in 2024, 2025. The Tomb Raider anime is going to take place after the trilogy of games. So it's going to kind of continue that storyline, even though another game is being made. So that's interesting. and that is being made by the same studio that did Castlevania, and I think the new Castlevania that's coming out like in the next couple days.
Wait a minute, I'm confused.
The
Wait, okay, wait. Hold on a second here. Hold on. Tomb Raider. Didn't Amazon buy the rights for Tomb Raider? But
the
this is
games, I
going on
guess.
just the games. Is it just the games, not the whole like IP? For some reason, I thought it was the whole IP because I'm like, wait a minute, Netflix.
Yeah,
That
I don't
doesn't
know. That's
compute.
I was thinking the same thing, but it's Netflix. So, and Amazon's the one who's making the next Tomb Raider game. Well, they're producing it or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, maybe this
It's under
deal
their
went.
roof.
Maybe this deal went through before the sale.
Well, this was the Tomb
Mm.
Raider one was originally announced in 2021.
Mm. So
Okay,
maybe
It's
okay.
just
So
with
yeah, it must have been before the sale. Oh, well, that's weird.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But the trailer came out. It has a very similar like character design to those games and everything since it's continuing that story. Um, which I mean, going by the strength and how good Castlevania is and what Tomb Raider is, I could see that also being very good because those games in particular were also fantastic. The slightly more interesting one is the Devil May Cry one because Devil May Cry already has an anime that's mediocre,
Yeah, and
and
the game stories
yeah,
are already kind of mediocre, and the original
now
voice actor and
you could
mocapper for Dante is a douchebag. So I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know how
there's
much I care
almost
about
no
Devil May Cry
information about
anymore.
this.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
was a 5-second trailer that looked
yep, we
nice,
got to
but
see Dante's hair.
it looks like it could be a retelling of the first game, which I it's not really. It's not a very good story. It's not. Nobody's asking for this shit. What I'm just gonna say.
No, I think it's almost purely based off the fact that Castlevania was so good and got
right.
such a
Ugh.
positive reaction from audiences, especially since the Devil May Cry series is going to be run by Adi Shankar, who is also from Castlevania. So it's the same people one way or another. If it's not the studio directly, it's people who were involved in the creation of Castlevania. So I think they're just
Hey,
hoping
maybe
to
they can make it good.
I
I have
mean,
no
Devil
problem
May
with that.
both could be good. It just depends on, how good is the action in particular, since those are both action series. Like, the animation needs to be very good with, very strong choreography and everything, especially Devil May Cry. That's the whole point of those games is stylish action. It's part of why the anime sucked.
Yeah, because it was very
There
static.
was so much Dante talking and not enough Dante killing things. So, we'll we'll see. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt just because Castlevania was good, so I don't have any reason to believe it won't be enjoyable.
Okay, over under. If they are doing the first game story, are we gonna get the dumbass? I wanted to be the one to fill your dark soul with light. Why?
No, absolutely not. No. I would bet more on like a weird little inside joke or something. Like an Easter egg type that references that god
Oh
awful
God!
piece of dialogue.
I just remembered the plot of that, and he's all like, "Oh, this Trish woman, I need to save the damsel in distress. Oh, she's hot. Oh, wait, that's a clone of your mother." Uh,
Already very anime.
yeah, I'm like, oh no, I just remember the plot of the. Oh no. Uh,
Yeah, but that's
oh
about it.
well.
I just wanted to mention those things because also since new Castlevania is coming out, it's prescient and Netflix is calling it anime, and I'm sure a lot of people who don't know any better would also consider it anime.
Of
So,
course, yeah. That's why they
Yeah,
put that on there. Because anime's cool
yep,
now.
it
anime's
is. It's so
cool.
cool, much to
Cool.
Kestrel's chagrin.
No, I'm just mad that it wasn't cool when I was a kid.
That's true. I think the only anime that was cool when I was a kid was if you watched Dragon Ball Z or Naruto, but you only to a certain degree. It was cool as long as you watched it, but you weren't like weird about watching it.
Yeah.
I don't think
But,
Then you
anybody
were
in my high
fine.
school even knew what. I think 3 people in my high school knew what anime was.
well, let me tell you something, bud. It wasn't cool if you grew up in fucking Hicksville, Vermont.
But
I
yeah,
knew one
that's about it.
guy,
So
one guy who had who in senior year of high school, we sat there and played Pokemon cards when they first came out in English class. Don't ask me how we managed to have time for that in English class. And he was giving me like VHS fan subs that were, 3 generation copies removed to borrow, and I watched Blue Seed. That was a
You
trip.
had the hookups.
Yeah.
But yeah. That
Yeah.
was it. There was like three of us who cared in the entire school of, X number of people. Anyway.
Yep, and that is our news.
All right, boys,
So
tell me, was there anything worth watching? Anything at all worth watching?
Jujutsu Kaisen's pretty good. I know DJ has some differing opinions, but I also think
Mhm.
he dropped it at the prequel arc, which is understandable. I didn't think that arc was very good or added a shitload to the story at this point. Maybe it does later on. So I can understand that. It is one of the few takes I've seen about it that were that strong.
Yeah,
But
it's a pretty hot take. Yeah, we can read
it
this.
is a pretty hot take. I agree that it was underwhelming, and I think I even talked about it a little bit last time, just since it's a prequel and everything, and it felt like we had no idea what the main characters were up to for the past like year because it was a prequel movie before that.
Yeah, exactly. Since like 2020, we haven't seen the
Yeah,
actual main characters.
yeah. So we can bring up his stuff too because we might as well just talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
Jujutsu Kaisen. But that has been I've enjoyed it, especially the new like Shibuya arc stuff. Like a lot of
Mhm.
things are happening, and it's going to a not very good place for our intrepid heroes, which is always fun. Um, so I am looking forward to it. I did watch the new episode today before we started.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna
Just
say, I haven't seen today's episode because we record right after I work, but after last week's episode, I'm very intrigued by this arc because that was an incredible episode.
yeah, it really cemented how much I like, and I think I've liked all of them in general, really, but I do like the villain quartet, I suppose. Oh, though it's more of a trio now, maybe depending on how you rank them. But I really like the villains in this show a lot.
Mm.
I think I like them because they're villains and they're dastardly and evil, but they do it in such a like a weird, interesting, nonchalant fashion,
Yeah,
which is jarring and in some ways makes them even more intimidating and charismatic as villains in a way. Like the scene from, and I believe it was in the episode. It wasn't in the newest one, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. I think it was in the one that you watched, but where they're talking about their plan, but they're just playing mahjong on like a porch.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like, oh, these people are planning this like mass genocidal event, but they're all just kind of chilling out on a nice deck in the middle of like a fall evening playing mahjong. And then in another scene, they're also planning stuff just in a playground. Like they don't have an evil lair like Ghetto and Jogo, Mahito, Hanami. I think
yeah,
that's the four main ones.
yeah.
They never, for the most part, really had like a brooding lair or
Mm.
anything. It was always just like, we're just chilling in this cafe
Yeah,
as we plot the demise of the human race and stuff. And to me, that made them way more dynamic as villains in a sense. And I'm glad that they're still kind of keeping that general feel of them, even as stuff gets hot and heavy. They're not comedic, but they sort of keep that weird like edge to them in that way where this feels like something that they're just doing as a hangout with the boys.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's good. I wanted to get your take on this stuff so far, especially because obviously up until now it still feels like the Gojo show, and now it's not going to be the Gojo show for a while.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
I
for once in a very long time, the show will have to stand on its own merits without its most popular character.
right. It'll actually have to give the main character something to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like I said, last week's episode was like probably peak Jujutsu Kaisen so far. I thought like the last two episodes of the hidden inventory arc were also very good. Uh so I think the season has been solid overall. Um I think when we, got back to the present and started the Shibuya incident and all that kind of stuff, I was like, is this what we've been hyped up about for so long? I don't really get it. But once we got into last week's episode, I definitely got it. Uh, and they went all out with it. So now, yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen going forward. Very invested again. Um, yeah, I think the animation is still probably like Mappa's best. They've had a lot of properties, a lot of big properties over the past few years, and they've been juggling a lot at once. I think the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen was the first time that they really like became the big marquee studio and just really showed off how incredible their production values and animation can be. And I think they never quite reached that level again. And now coming back to it, uh, even though they have so much else on their plate, I think it's at least as good as it's ever been. And the direction this season is really interesting. Uh, like Chainsaw Man, they got a young talented guy who really proved himself with episode direction on some of their series in the past, including the first season, and just really stood out and showed his worth. And they gave him the chance, and he's just been knocking it out of the park with just really creative cinematic expression. So yeah, I'm excited by it. I'm interested to see where it goes. Now that we are back in the present and really moving forward and dealing with our main characters again and seeing like what big story the series wants to tell. Yeah, I'm all about it.
It's already gotten to
And
the point where I'm mentally uh, prepping my list because obviously with Gojo uh, being sealed up and everything, we are gonna most likely lose some good guys
yeah,
in this,
right.
especially because it's called an incident and nothing good is ever called an incident. So I've already started making like my mental draft of who I'd be okay losing and who I would have an emotional event over. I'd be like, okay, I'm okay if this. I'll be fine if this good guy dies. I'll be a wreck if this one does.
Who are the
Like,
top examples of each category?
I would be fine if like so the class ones, I suppose, or class twos. I don't even know his name, but the guy who hangs around like Minamin or whatever, the one that's just like a dude with a beanie on.
Oh yeah,
He was in the prequel movie too. Uh, like he's entirely unmemorable. If he gets, killed, I would be devastated. I'd be devastated if Panda died.
of course.
Yeah, I think most people would be. Um, Another one that I'd probably be fine with is the guy that looks like uh he should be in Blade Runner instead of Jujutsu Kaisen. So like that's how much I like how little I care about someone because he's the one that always has a lollipop. Also in the
Okay.
prequel movie.
Yeah.
So and then probably the one that I could see that has that balance of I would not want them to die, but I could easily see the story doing it is like a Nanamine,
Hmm.
as Yuji calls him, the guy with the little glasses.
Hmm.
Because he is a major enough character to have a sort of mentor status for Yuji because they did that like mission together and everything, and he's had kind of his own background story told already. But he isn't. indisposable, and that if he died, the story arc would be like the world would be changed drastically. So he could be used as kind of the perfect death that creates pathos for Yuji's character development without it being somebody that is essential to the universe in the way that Gojo would be.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if he's one of the casualties, especially because I thought he was going to die a long time ago in that first fight that they had, because that's just what it kind of felt like with the way that he was like, I'll stay back and Yuji, you go on ahead. It was when they were in the sewer and stuff, and I was like, oh, he's going to die right here, isn't he?
Right.
But I I think that's what excites me most about the upcoming Shibuya incident stuff is, and maybe this is a series detriment being used as a tool in the positive factor, is I don't think anybody except Yuji really has plot armor at this
Mhm.
point. Like, I could see any of them dying at any point because the only two people that have true importance in this universe at this point is Yuji because of Sukuna's fingers thing, and then Gojo because he is a god and kind of the good guy trump card. And without him, yeah, everything goes to shit at this point in times. But everyone else, I feel like, is generally disposable.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I
What about
think
you?
yeah.
Is there any character that if they died, you would be a wreck?
um Odo.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's super true. Yeah, that's another good one. I had forgotten about him.
Yeah.
It,
Need more punching bag Toto.
I want to believe Toto actually may have some plot armor because he believes he and Yuji are brothers in his completely fabricated universe.
Yes. Uh, but yeah, I think Nanami is a good pick for like, the emotional payoff. Because yeah, his whole kind of arc in season one made you care about him a lot and be invested in him. And he's kind of you know, the lovable kind of anti-hero. Like, he doesn't necessarily have a sense of justice or anything. He's just a businessman going about his day. Um, and, he's been kind of put through the ringer in a few ways, and you can sympathize with his uh, trauma of corporate greed.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I like him a lot. That could
you
be
know
good.
it's bad when he picks Jujutsu Sorcery over Salary Man.
Yeah, exactly. Putting my life in danger day after day is still better than working a 9 to 5.
Yeah, and he would just make the most sense if
Yeah,
if they went that route here. Like if they went with we have to kill at least one person who has some major connection to Yuji in a way and to the audience.
right, exactly. And like he's the old generation, so I mean, he's probably what like our age, but it's okay to
Yeah,
kill him off because he's not one of the new kids that is just starting their journey. So that's the kind of role that a character like that can fulfill really effectively, and yeah, really give the impetus for the next generation to push forward and save the day.
especially since we've already had a death of one of the kids, so to speak.
True. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they've already gotten that kind of out of the way. Like blood has been spilled on the good guy side already. So the pro tags are gonna. I mean, they're definitely gonna lose more. It just turns into how deep into the roster are they gonna cut
Yeah.
before Gojo inevitably gets out.
Yeah,
But
we'll see. It's definitely in a state where like I have no idea what's going to happen next, and you know, I like a lot of things about Demon Slayer, but you know what's going to happen in Demon Slayer. It's the same thing that happens every arc. So to be in this kind of position with the crazy shit that's going down in this arc, I'm definitely excited.
yeah, I agree with that sentiment entirely. I think someone even brought it up that they were like in a forum or a thread about how Demon Slayer could never be this interesting narratively because you just kind of know everything that's happening, and that's one of Jujutsu Kaisen's strongest points is that fact. So, I mean, it's got me hooked. I'm hoping. I feel like you could convince DJ to come back if you're just like, just skip that shit if it's really bothering you that, and just go back to the present. And I
Yeah,
don't know, Wikipedia anything that you may be confused by from the prequel, though at this point that hasn't been an issue for now.
it seems
As
like he
and
did make it through the entire prequel arc, though.
well, he said 5 episodes. How many was that in the prequel arc? Like how
Mm,
many was the prequel arc?
that sounds right. And I think it was 5 episodes.
Well, maybe that's where he cut off and he was like, I don't care
Yeah,
anymore.
because I mean, it had like a month hiatus after that, so that's probably he's just like, I don't feel inspired to go back right now. But yeah, let's talk about his thoughts here. Do you want to read
Yeah.
them, or you want me to?
You can read them real quick because I'm trying to find a really funny meme that I saw based off of the spoiler stuff that happened in the manga recently. That it doesn't spoil it at all, and I wanted to know if you had seen it. Which it's just it's just a panel, and there's one with Gojo, and then there's another one with some other characters, and it just says, "This truly was our Jujutsu Kaisen," and I fucking lost my shit. But yeah, you can read DJ's thoughts.
All right. So there's this guy named DJ. For those of you who were listening to the podcast 10 years ago, you might remember him. But yeah, his input on Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, which he gives a D plus to, is without beating around the bush, I did not like this at all. Thought it was boring, unnecessary, and did nothing for Gojo as a character, which is saying a lot, as he's always been my favorite. I didn't think the first 5 episodes of this did anything to spotlight or explain his growth, and if anything, I actually think it made him less interesting in showing that the struggles he faced have done nothing to change him as a person. He's always been overpowered, and he's always been a goofball. 5 episodes worth of sad, predictable backstory stuff did nothing to help influence my opinion in regard to any of that. Additionally, I'm sure some of the intended methodology with the prequel was to have Gojo's prior relationships mirror the characters we've come to know over the course of Season 1, but they came across more like uninspired clones that never gave me any sort of reason to care about them or their fate. All things considered, this felt more like a spin-off or fanfiction than a canon installment of Jujutsu Kaisen, and has, unfortunately, at least temporarily, killed my investment in the series. Very hot take. Burning hot.
He's right about the clone thing, though, especially that one lady.
Yeah, over a girl, yeah.
Yeah, he's got that. That's pretty undeniable. I mean, I guess
Nobara, but with a cigarette.
Oh yeah, true.
Underage smoking Nobara.
Ooh, so badass. Yeah, it is certainly written like a hot take. I can understand where he's coming from a little bit. Hopefully, he can jump back into it then, especially because, yeah, as you said, he reached the end of that portion, and now shit's getting back into gear.
Yeah.
But if it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, then so be it. I'm wondering, though, if I keep reading over his line about the 5 episodes did anything to, like, spotlight or change, like, his growth or anything. And I'm wondering if that's partially the point. Like, that's the way I see it, is he's always been this way and always will be this way, and it causes just as many problems as it does benefits.
Yeah.
His aloof tendencies and his arrogance and everything, that Gojo may never grow out of it because he doesn't necessarily need to, since stuff works out, and maybe the show's gearing up to be like, there's going to be some situations where that won't be the case. He can't just, wink and open up his eyeballs wide enough to fix a problem of this magnitude.
Hot.
What'd you say? Sorry.
Just be super hot to fix all problems.
Just be super hot. Yeah, just be incredibly attractive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's a good point. Yeah.
That's how I saw it, at least. It's just like, this is how he's always been, and this is how he's always going to be, for better or for worse. Because especially when you think about Gojo as a character, sometimes I'm watching and I'm like, he's 2 steps away from being a bad guy.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
we did kind of see that in the prequel. Like, he was the one who was like, "Can we kill them?" And Geto was like, "We really need to have a good reason to kill them."
yeah, so he's almost as much of an anti-hero in some ways as like Nanami or whatever, just from a standpoint of he is like this universe's Superman, but with a less rigid moral backbone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he's like, if a realistic human was Superman, if you always had that kind of power and you had the kind of pride that humans have, then yeah, you wouldn't be this like paragon of justice. You'd be super fucking entitled and arrogant and see yourself above everyone else. You wouldn't take anything seriously. You wouldn't care about anything. Nothing matters to you because you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah, hopefully we can convince him to come back.
Yeah. If we ever talk to him again.
I'm ready to move on to like a Zom 100 or so, since all three of us. I'm just gonna go ahead and say watched it.
Yeah, just to confirm, Kate, you have not watched any anime in the past 3 months,
I
correct?
did not watch any anime in the last 3 months.
Okay. Cool.
Splendid. Both of you gave it a pretty solid review so far, and I think this is where we're gonna differentiate a little bit because the show's been getting gradually worse for me every week to the point where I don't care that it's been effectively canceled.
Interesting.
I think mainly because, as DJ put in his thoughts, like once they got away from like the black company corporate stuff and it just kind of turned into a zombie themed sort of like buddy comedy type thing with some other folks, I lost a little bit of interest. Uh, put that on top of the constant production issues, and then when the episodes come out, they're not exactly impressive either. Like the last episode I watched, which I think was the last one that released, I was keeping track, which I normally don't do. I let myself get kind of sucked into an episode. I was like, most of these animation, like the scenes, are just cuts, like cuts
Mhm.
to still people standing and talking, and then when you have like some action, it's not fluid. It's like 3 frames of action or something with some swoosh marks to indicate that an action has occurred, especially when you compare it to the pilot episode, which, looked really good and was very dynamic and exciting to watch, and it's just gradually gotten worse. So, I don't know. I'm just not super intrigued by it anymore. If it has a manga, I'll read it because the story and
Certainly
the
does.
idea of it is still something I'd be willing to explore. But I think this show has just kind of crushed any momentum I had for it, with all of the problems that's been going on, despite how ironic it is and how funny that also is that it makes fun of the black company stuff, and then it turns out that the people who are making it are in the exact same situation.
Especially since, again, their model for the black company was the animation studio that they split off of.
Whoopsie daisy.
Yup. Yeah, I mean, certainly, obviously, it has production issues. We don't know when we're getting the last quarter of it because they ran out of time from so many delays. Uh, it's definitely been going downhill in production quality. However, I think that given how many issues they've been up against, it doesn't look that bad. Like what you're describing is something I would use to describe a lot of anime out there over the years. It's not really the sense I got here. Like they'll take some shortcuts, but I think overall I still find it to be generally a pretty solid looking show, and they usually pull out, a few pretty solid cuts. Um, so I feel like they're using their extra time that they need to get the show done at all pretty effectively with, making it still look pretty good. Certainly we were spoiled by the first episode that they clearly put everything into, and we're never going to be able to reach that level again. So yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest disappointments of the season because of how strong it started and how downhill it's gone since then in various ways. I still have a lot of fun with it every week. Um, I still think, and I'll read DJ's thing, or you can in a minute.
Yeah, I'll take DJ's thing this time around.
Cool. Yeah, I do think that it had a really important message, and that's not necessarily sustainable to focus on for very long. Um, Especially when you've kind of established this other plot that makes most of that stuff irrelevant for the most part. Like, you can only bring it back in so many times. Uh, I think it has discussed some other important, relatable talking points about, you know, social interactions and kind of the way that society has boxed people in various ways. And there's some good character development that appears to be kind of blossoming here. So I think it still has a lot to give. It's still too concerned with like kind of being dumb fun and not taking itself seriously enough, so that either it's like absurdly exaggerated villains or it's trying to be serious and then undercuts all that with, some stupid anime trope kind of gag. So I think that's probably my biggest issue with where it's been heading lately. And the fact that who knows when we'll see the last 3 episodes, which the last episode that we are getting set up the rest of the series like in a major way. So it's like, okay, now that we have something to look forward to, we don't get to actually see it. So lots of terrible irony to everything about this series and its production and delivery. But I think for the most part, I've been enjoying the ride, and when it wants to just be fun, it's a lot of fun, and I can appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we may just be at a crossroads there because I also found the character development to be rather shallow in a
Mm.
way. I was like, okay, I've seen this same character development of these same types of characters, and like you said, with the in reference to the animation, that tons of other anime look like this. Well, tons of other anime have characters like this too. You know,
Yeah.
a people pleaser, a big guy who's comedic relief because that was his, dream or whatever, even though he's just a gag character.
Who gives a shit about him?
The
He's just
foreign
a Grand
exchange,
Blue character.
yeah, the foreign exchange otaku
Yeah.
that we know almost nothing about. Like for the most part, I don't find any of them particularly intriguing. And if there is character development, then maybe, as you said, if slash when we get more of the series, that'll develop into something that makes them more interesting than just some shallow digs at some common psychological social problems that have been explored much better in many other anime. But uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
just every episode, it was losing me little by little by little, and I think it. And I even may have talked about in another episode that I thought that was going to happen to other people, and it fucking happened to me.
yeah, I certainly don't care about those two characters. Like they are just there for the comedy, and that's fine. Um, the the two like kind of serious leads, um, they're the ones who get the drama, and like I mentioned, the way that the show executes that is with completely exaggerated villains, which kind of undermines the message that they're trying to send and the development that they're trying to depict. Um, but I still think like you know Akira's whole kind of corporate trauma and how that has shaped him, uh, and how he copes with that. Um, I that's not something that I really see in anime. Uh,
No, that part is unique, but I
yeah,
think it's the
so,
only one that is.
Yeah, and I mean, Shizuka's backstory, yeah, there's nothing particularly innovative about that, but I do like how she's able to kind of, you know, recognize the similarities in what Akira is going through and how she has kind of let her father turn her into the person that she hated and is trying to move past that and is like, having open and honest dialogues of like, hey, I know I was a total dick back there. I didn't, that's not what I mean to do. That's the person that my father tried to turn me into, and I need to work to like get away from that. And I still fall back into it sometimes. And like you're helping me realize that and become a better person. So I appreciate that kind of interaction. But no, I get it. I totally respect where you're coming from.
It was nice to see someone apologizing for it and acknowledging a problem like that. I did find that part a little refreshing because normally you don't get such a thorough apology like that
Yeah.
in explanation. An apology
Ju-
and an explanation that doesn't come across as an excuse.
right. Like completely unprompted, right? That's the
Yeah.
thing, is that she just completely was self-aware of, she was able to reflect on something that she did that she doesn't agree with. It wasn't that someone else called her out and she got defensive. She was like, hey, I know you're not mentioning it, but I have recognized through some introspection that that was a shitty thing to do. So I appreciate that.
I'll read DJ's stuff now.
Yep.
So he goes, hell yeah, the first good zombie anime since School Live. He also gave this a B, to preface real quick. So he did, in fact, like this show. Zom 100 is a load of fun and at oftentimes can be very thought provoking, but I do think the whole corporate slaves are zombies analogy burnt out way quicker than I thought it would. And at this point, I just think that's flavoring rather than a cornerstone of the show's meaning or purpose, which is mildly depressing as I think that aspect was handled extremely well in the pilot.
Yeah.
Which we kind of covered a little bit on our previous discussion and stuff. Uh, and I think you make a good point that the corporate slaves as zombies can't go on forever or for a particularly long time either because everyone's zombies.
Right. Yeah. There are no corporations left, so you can
Yeah,
only come back to that well so often.
pretty much. But I'm glad that DJ is enjoying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I agree, handled extremely well in the pilot, as everything was done extremely well in the pilot.
I know. It's just like that was kind of a perfect short film. And, you got the punchline at the end, and that's kind of all you need from here on out. It's just, I don't know, Shaun of the
Yeah.
Dead.
That's actually a very interesting point. Like, you could honestly show someone that first episode and just tell them nothing else existed, and it would still be
Mhm.
perfectly satisfactory to watch.
Yep. Perhaps even more so.
Yeah, because you don't have to worry about being disappointed by anything else.
Yep.
Interesting. Release a Blu-ray with just the pilot on it.
I'm sure that's how it's being released in Japan.
All right, well, I'm only watching one other show, and I don't have a ton to say about it at this point, but I know you're watching it as well, and that's My Happy Marriage.
Hmm. Yep.
And my only question, really, at this point, and Emily and I have tried to discuss it, is when does the happy part come in?
I mean, when they just get to be a couple, they're happy.
Because I was sitting there watching it, and we were going through like all of the trauma that she continues to process and still experience in real time as she's processing the old trauma, and I was just like, when do we get to the happy part? We still have a long way to go before we even get my contented marriage.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a marriage yet.
Yeah, no.
The whole title is a lie.
My occasionally relatively comfortable engagement.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yep. My touch and go engagement.
Yep. Very true. Yeah, I don't know. I think my my enthusiasm for the show peaked partway through, and I don't know, I wasn't that impressed by like its ending.
Yeah.
We got another season announced, so it's got a chance to get back there and really, I don't know, impress us somehow. But I don't know.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think the character development of our protagonist, I think her development was a little too much of a slow burn for me. And then they kind of just dumped all of this insane amount of growth in her like dream walking phase right at the very end.
Yeah, very true. Very rushed there.
Yeah, it felt super rushed because she made like very little progress throughout the whole show, and depending on how you measure progress in processing trauma and things like that. But at least from an outward perspective, she was still very struggling a lot, still being emotionally manipulated a lot, still like really having a hard time just making it day to day. And then she just like blossoms into like a phoenix immediately in like the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes of that episode and everything. It felt super duper rushed.
Yeah, that was probably my biggest issue with it. I think I was enjoying it a lot up to that point.
Yeah. The whole idea of like dream sight is pretty cool.
Mhm.
Like that is a dope power that she just go into like people's dreams and stuff. That's always super cool and everything. And I like them delving into the past a little bit and showing how her mom kind of sealed her powers in that tree to protect her, even though you could make the argument that it made her life worse.
Yeah.
So a risk from the mother that didn't necessarily pan out depending on how you look at it. So you know, a good intention maneuver that had mixed results at best and everything. Um, yeah, I agree with you. I think and understand your viewpoint as well. That interest peaks. I think for me, it peaked when the fiance character burned down her old family's house
I mean,
and
he
like
didn't
rest.
really burn it down. It just kind of started in the fight from the other guys.
But it was a fight caused by his powers.
Yeah.
So I think if you took that into court, you'd have a hard time defending. But
Self-defense.
it's self-defense. Yeah, I'm glad it's getting another season because now it looks like we're finally going to sort of move forward in the evolution of their relationship outside of war, trauma, and them being constantly separated by their responsibilities, whether they willingly accepted those responsibilities or not.
Mhm.
And now we'll finally get some time for them to sort of grow and get to know each other and maybe turn it into a happy marriage instead of a tumultuous engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, its greatest strengths were everything that was focusing on instead of like the whole plot around her powers, which it was always teasing throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it tried to rush all of the story around that in like the last episode is what, killed it a little bit. It's
Yeah,
still good
thanks to
overall.
Grandpa.
Yeah.
We were glad also that they decided not to go too far into like an incestuous subplot.
Yeah, I did
That
wonder
was
about that.
that was much appreciated that they didn't explore that realm too much. But yeah, that's pretty much all the stuff that I have to watch. If I know we've got some other thoughts on DJ, and if you wanted to cover any other shows or anything real quick, say we got a little bit of time here if we use our standard 2 hour hard cutoff.
Yeah, sure. I guess we can uh I'll talk about DJ's top show, which he has thoughts on and is also a show I'm watching, so that makes sense. That's Mushoku Tensei. So he says he gives it an A. It's his number one show this season. Says this is probably the only show that can successfully pull off an entire arc about erectile dysfunction. Holy shit, was it different from everything else the series has done so far, and holy shit, did I love it. Rudy is a truly remarkable character, and getting to spend a full core on his inner struggle is the exact sort of slow burn I wanted from this. Yep. That sure was a whole season about erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, I've seen way too many screenshots from it with no context.
Yeah, it's an interesting show. It is maybe unfortunate that it has a lot of elements that would turn a lot of people off, because in many ways it is also like the best isekai reincarnation show. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is one of the few shows that like I've read all the source material for long before I get into the adaptation. So I definitely approach it from a very different perspective. Um, and I'm looking more towards, kind of the adaptation, the production values, how it's paced, stuff like that. And yeah, I think it was a step down from the first season, certainly, because the first season had like 5 years of them building this studio and this team and this production around giving it the perfect adaptation. And this one just came a few years later and already had other shows being made by the studio and had some staff turnover and different like lead creatives. So it was clearly never going to reach those heights again in terms of production. And it doesn't, but they still do a good job maintaining kind of the look and feel of the first season and some really spectacular sequences when it needs to be. And just the tone kind of balancing the weird comedy with weird sex stuff and the like really heartfelt drama behind it all. It's a very delicate balance to strike and to adapt into a new medium. So the fact that they're still able to pull that off successfully shows that they've kind of got the formula down for that. So yeah, it's a good show. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess we can read the two other quick thoughts he has, just because he took the time to write them. They're two shows that nobody else on this podcast is ever going to watch.
Nope.
But one of them, it's number 3 of the season, A minus, is Bang Dream, It's My Go. I've heard a lot of people be like, man, I know that only Bang Dream fans are going to watch this, but it's like a really great series, and you don't actually need to watch any Bang Dream stuff before it, so it's unfortunate. Um, but yeah, what DJ says is equal parts harrowing and hopeful. The standalone Bang Dream series takes a significantly more dramatic approach to its typical like light-hearted formula. This expertly directed tale of grief and what it takes to move forward not only experiments with new and creative storytelling tactics, but gives us the most realistic and delicate look at autism that I've ever seen in an animated series. Quite the claim. And it's a damn shame that no one is ever going to see it. Very interesting. Any thoughts on any of that?
Not in particular, other than I know that Bang Dream has a shitload of, I don't even know what you would call them, spin-offs? Like
This is definitely
seasons?
a spin-off. Yeah, I think it's got like 3 seasons of the main series. This is a spin-off. I don't know if it's had other spin-offs before. I know D4DJ is kind of like tangentially related. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, he really likes it. Um, and we could hear more about it if he'd ever fucking come on the show. The other thing that he wrote about was his number 5 of the season. I guess I'll just mention the one thing that we didn't cover in that top 5 of his was Horimiya, which he didn't mention, but he's talked about in the past, and both he and I have read the manga of that beforehand. But his number 5, somehow with a B, is Rent a Girlfriend Season 3. He says, I'm not sure what this series thinks it's doing, having an actual plot all of a sudden, but I want it to stop so I can go back to hating it. The protagonist is still the fucking worst, but this unexpected shift in direction, tone, and its new focus on how to cope with death is not just unexpected, but very well done. I don't believe you. I think you're full of shit.
No, none of this can be possible.
Nope. Doubt.
Especially with the caveat of the protagonist is still awful.
Yeah, the fucking worst. A lot of people really love to really hate that show.
Anime folks are weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's an understatement, if I've ever heard one.
So yeah, the rest of my slate fairly unremarkable. Other than what we already talked about, like my top 4 is all sequels. Talked about 2 of them. Bleach and Bungo Stray Dogs are the other ones. Bleach isn't as good this season as the last one. Everything about the adaptation still is, and it's still a remarkable improvement over the source material. But this is where the arc like kind of dragged its feet a lot. So making all of that very good is still an incredible achievement, but it could only make it so good. Yeah, Bungo Stray Dogs, very solid season. I think it's been getting probably better and better each season. It leaves off on a huge ass cliffhanger for future events, so I assume we will be getting a 6th season before too long. And then Horimiya, weird random bits of the manga that we didn't cover in the first season thrown into this season. Crunchyroll has like a chronological order watch guide where you have to like take timestamps of each episode to piece it all apart and try to get it all together as the manga originally presented the events. So
Jesus Christ.
yeah, because here's the thing. This is kind of interesting to discuss a little bit. Because I was having this conversation with my friends the other day. We've had light novel adaptations, manga adaptations, all these anime for the past many decades that get one season and they leave off with no resolution, and we never get more, and everyone's pissed off about it. Now, what a few of them have started to do, and Horimiya now is a really good example of it, is instead of doing that, they kind of cut out all of the unnecessary bits and give you like the complete story in the first season, give you a conclusive ending at the end. Now that angers the fans of the source material who didn't get to see all of their material adapted. And in a situation like this, where that first season is very successful, then they have incentive to go back and adapt all of that missing material. But then you end up in the situation where if you want to watch it all how it was originally presented in the manga and how it chronologically takes place, and not feel like you're watching all of the important stuff followed by all of the unimportant stuff, then you have to do this absurd timestamp editing to get it all in the right order, or at least watch, episodes kind of thrown together from the first and second seasons. So that can also be a little bit frustrating once you've gotten to that point. But, they don't know if they're going to get 2 seasons when they first start adapting it. So they would rather give you a complete enough story in the first one and have something satisfying in case it's not successful enough to get any more made than to risk not having any sort of ending. And then, everyone hates it for that reason. So it's an interesting dilemma and an interesting solution that this production has chosen. And we certainly get interesting output because of it.
Yeah, I think if I were to choose between the 2 options, I would pick the one that could be considered an ending, even if slightly disappointing, because there have been many shows that I have enjoyed that have not and probably will never get a second season.
Yeah.
But at least there is no, horrific cliffhanger or anything of that nature, even if it is underwhelming as an ending portion. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's that show. And the new adaptation of Rurouni Kenshin is pretty mediocre. So if you don't want to engage in that property, you're in luck because it's not really worth it anyway.
Yay!
Undead Murder Farce. Apparently, a lot of people really like this. It's
yeah, like I said in the chat, A&N in particular, their writers, when they did their like top anime of the season, basically everyone said it was this.
Wow. Yeah, that
Yep.
certainly would
Yeah.
not expect that. I guess it is the most unusual anime of the season of the stuff that I watched. It's it definitely has kind of the most unique charm and identity to it. So I can give it points for that. It stands out. I've talked about it a bit in the past. It kind of throws every public domain literary figure at the wall and sees what sticks. And sometimes it works out, and a lot of it is a fucking mess, but it's interesting. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I appreciated watching it. I was never quite sure what it was going to do, and it kind of seemed like it wasn't either. But, yeah, worth checking out, I suppose. And then the Masterful Cat Show is just kind of like, you know, turn your mind off fun if you like cats. I don't know.
Yeah, I think DJ was kind of harsh on that one too.
Yes, I mean, he gave it the same grade that he gave Jujutsu Kaisen. So, if you believe that Jujutsu Kaisen deserves a D, then also this one.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep, that's all I watched. Very light season, especially for me. Very mediocre season overall. Very little that I was excited about, and almost all of them were sequels that I already expected this level of quality, if not better, from previous seasons.
Yep. All right. Well, so with that, do we want to go into some recommendations if we have any?
Sure.
I'll actually go first, because I have one. Yu Yu Hakusho is on the Shonen Jump app now.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you have not read that or otherwise experienced the property, since it was also a very popular anime on Toonami for a little bit, give Shonen Jump your absolute steal of a $2 a month and read this series. I'm working through it now, and it's very enjoyable and fun with lots of very nostalgic characters and things. And if it's new to you, it's also just a pretty good shonen, just all in all. It's 176 chapters, so I don't really know where that stands in terms of manga, but it is not a particularly difficult read either. So you can get started reading it, and before you know it, you're through like 7 or 8 chapters in like 20 minutes, because some of the panels are not exactly a very high reading level. So
Not quite as dense as his Hunter x Hunter days.
not quite, no. Very a good selection of panels. They're just Yusuke says one thing for one sentence, and then Botan says one thing for one sentence, and then there's a big action panel of Yusuke punching something, and then we're on to the next page.
Yep. Yu Yu Hakusho is roughly the length of the average arc of One Piece.
Well, there you have it. So I would, yeah, definitely recommend it. Just it's very fun. So, yep.
Kate, do you have anything?
Do I have anything? Is there anything? God, I don't know. Wait, what games have I been playing? Did anything new come out? Can't remember. Shit.
Liza P.
Liza P is supposed to be pretty good. I balked at it because I had a hard time beating a mid-boss in the demo, so I backed off, but I think they just adjusted a bunch of shit in the game with a patch, so it might be easier now, but if you like Souls-likes, that's supposed to be a really good one, so you should check it out.
Yeah, they did patch and buff some stuff for the character and nerf some of the bosses. I'm playing it right now, and I'm happy they did that because I was playing pre-patch, and it can be quite brutal. But yeah, now it should be better.
Yeah, the game seemed to rely too much on parrying, and that scared me. Because I'm bad at parrying. I hear that
Well, not just
that kind of
pairing, but you needed perfect pairing.
Yeah, that's not easy. I heard that you can kind of mitigate that with elemental damage later, but I'm like, I've got too many other things to play right now, so I'll just wait till I have a lull. If that ever happens, which probably won't, but I'll pick it up someday.
All right. I don't have any weeb shit to recommend, but as of tomorrow, so several days ago when you hear this episode, Breaking Bad has been over for a decade. And if you haven't watched Breaking Bad in a while, I recommend you go do so because I haven't watched it in most of a decade, and I think I need to go back to it because it remains one of the greatest pieces of media ever made. So that's my recommendation.
I have one recommendation which may or may not make it by the time. I'm gonna try to edit this episode tomorrow, so it should be out before uh before this event happens. So if you're listening to this hot off the presses, MICE, the Massachusetts Independent Comic Expo, is happening in Boston at the BU something center. It's an old Cadillac dealership building. That's now their student union building, basically. That is one of the best independent comic book expos around. So if you're in the Boston area, it's free. You can go down there and meet some cool artists and get some cool independent comic books. Just make sure you got a mask on you. I think they're requiring masks this year because of the spike in COVID cases. But that's Saturday and Sunday, 30th of September and the 1st of October. And if you happen to miss this year, or you're listening to this podcast later, they do this every year. So, check out MICE sometime.
Nice. I do love good comic book show, especially when they are free.
Yes. It's good shit.
Cool. Well, I believe that about wraps us up. So we can kick into our traditional outro here. So Kestrel, why don't you lay out the boilerplate and tell us where we can find you?
Find me or the podcast?
Both. That was the boilerplate portion.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So you can find the podcast wherever you find podcasts. We are on Google Podcasts, which I guess is going away and being folded into YouTube Music. So maybe we're on YouTube Music already. I don't know. Anyway, we're there in its form, whatever it takes. Apple Podcasts certainly is a thing currently. Also, Stitcher's not a thing. So Spotify, that's a thing. Certainly a thing. SoundCloud also, we have our newest 2 or 3 episodes up on there at any given time. And you can get it on various other random places like iHeartRadio. That's definitely a place. Amazon has got like our Alexa skill and I think another Amazon thing for podcasts. Check that out. Any other podcatcher of your choosing. It's just going to pull from one of those other sources. We're also just on fanpost.com if you want to just listen to episodes embedded in there. Also on social media. We are on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter at Phantom Post Radio, as well as on Facebook. We'll see if this Blue Sky thing takes off or whatever, but it's still like closed beta for now, so not going to bother with that at the moment. Also, if you want to get in contact with us and don't want to deal with social media bullshit, you can always email us, phantompostradio@gmail.com. And yeah, I'm on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. I am at Full Metal Kioma, but I don't ever post anything, so don't bother.
Nice. Kate, how about you?
I am on the internet at SonicBug. I am currently not posting really on any social media platforms, but I do have a Blue Sky account now, so I am over there. If you absolutely need to flag me down, that's probably the best place to do it. Aside from that, I am on our website posting up reviews of books. And starting in October, more anime, as I get back into the fall anime season. So that's where I exist on the internet.
Nice. And as usual, I am only here. I do not do any social media stuff. So if you want to hear what I have to say, it's got to be in the audio format. But as always, thank you everyone for listening. Send us any
more
ideas.
thing.
Oh, there's one more thing.
Yeah, actually, a special announcement. This is coming in right now. As of next episode, we're actually going to be rebranding as Crunchyroll Radio.
Oh, excellent. So the cash is going to roll in, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, whatever. Thank you, Crunchyroll gods. I take back any bad things I've ever said. But excellent. Well, we will talk to everyone later. Enjoy your anime, your new video games. I know we've had a shitload of those come out recently, as Kate was saying. So, yep, everyone, we will see you later.
See ya.
Ciao.